Hey guys, what is up? Swim here, and if you didn't see my last video that I showed yesterday with the gameplay in the Marauders deck, I'm gonna go ahead and reiterate the opening point. So, for those of you guys who don't know, this is a Runeterra client that was given to me and a bunch of other content creators just for the sake of making recordings to share with you guys, right? So basically, I'm just going to be showing off some decks. You can't really play against other people, so it's just gonna be basically bot games, and for the most part, obviously most cards in the game are pretty much the same as they were before. There are some balance tweaks, as they have said, but that is not for me to show you guys. Riot will be showing you all the balance changes themselves in, I think, they said the 22nd, I think, so that's the day before the closed beta, I believe, which would be really cool, because I'll obviously, do a kind of balance impressions on that date. But I am allowed to, show off some great decks, and this is a deck, the ephemeral Chariot Hecarim deck that, obviously we all have enjoyed and played different times. It's a very, very kind of basic deck, but this is my current build of the deck, and I've modified it in a couple different ways. I'm going to be playing a bit of this as well. There's a chance this is going to be an early days deck. Right now, I am basically trying to decide what deck I want to play when the game comes out, and you can play, with people in ranked ladder, and that's going to be a hard decision to make, but this is potentially a contender to that, right? And I want to be playing the best deck because I actually plan on taking ranked very seriously right at the start. So we're going to be kind of experimenting with different versions of Shark Chariot and see if we can make one version that is, top tier 1, basically. So to explain the different card choices in the deck, we've got a pretty aggro version of this deck with some Swarm Grow cards like Sparring Student and Green Glade Duo that are going to get extra points every time our ephemerals come back every turn, those being Shark Chariot. We have, pretty standard value cards, and we've also got Mark of the Isles. Obviously, usually you see some amounts of these being run in these decks. Right now, it's a 3 of in this deck because it's a really, really flexible card, and you often don't really mind giving things the ephemeral tag here. Silent Shadows here has really impressed me as a reach tool as of late, and this version skews a little bit more mid-rangey using 3 Dark Waters, Scourge, and 2 Death Marks, which is a ratio that I'm typically finding that I'm liking. Finally, we're rounding out with 2 Shadow Assassins. Pretty straightforward. I haven't been running these in versions of this deck in the past, but they're pretty solid value cards that you can just kind of play proactively, and they help the fact that this deck, while being mid-rangey, doesn't really have super expensive cards it wants to be running, right? Because of that, it's obviously better to have a bit more card draw, so you can make more use of your mana, especially when you're hitting those turn 5 and turn 7 if games are going on a little bit longer. All right, apart from this, you guys know the drill, right? This is not a super crazy new deck. It's Shark Chariots. Let's go ahead and jump into a game, and we'll show off how it works. Okay, we're going to go ahead and jump into a bot game here, and we're going to basically just show how the deck plays. It's, Shark Chariot deck. This one is going to be very standard to how, other aggro versions of this deck have played in the past. There are some versions of Shark Chariot that end up a little bit more kind of mid-range or grindy, but this one is skewed mostly, if not almost entirely, towards the aggro plan. Okay, so our opponent is going to be Elise, a spider deck on Noxus Shadow Isles, which means that they're very aggressive. We want to mulligan from that standpoint. Always look at the opponent's deck before you mulligan, and we want to stop that kind of aggressive value. Deny is a pretty easy kick for that reason. It's going to be a little too slow here, but these other 2 cards in our hand are pretty fantastic. I don't really like Sparring Student in this matchup, honestly. I could go for something a little bit better. It's a turn 1 play, but we already have a turn 1 play from Islander. Let's go ahead and drop Sparring Student as well. Sparring Student is a lot better when we are aggressive, but we're going to have to play a little bit defensively here. The most important concept in pretty much any mana-based card game is that if you're in a situation where you benefit from, longer games, you want to slow the game down and just kind of make sure people stay alive and not take risks and not be aggressive. But if your opponent benefits from longer games, you want to be very aggressive yourself and act in mulligan accordingly, right? So, this is a problem. And this is why Half-Lives Aristocrat actually gets so much value. There's not really anything I can do here. It doesn't make sense to attack into that, but I will probably be forced to block it and get a pretty awkward trade because of it. Okay, so he's going to go ahead and play the Horror as well. We're on turn 2, looking for some opportunity to block. Fearsome means we can't block with our Islander unless we want to do something super weird like use Mark of the Isles. And we're going to have 3 mana next turn for Zed. That is pretty important, the fact that we know we're going to have 3 mana next turn for Zed. So if we pre-develop a Shark Chariot, basically it just means we'll have the additional... well, we'll be able to attack, because we're attacking on turn 3, right? He's got token on 2, we've got token on 3. We want to attack on Zed, and we want to summon a free Shark Chariot. So if I pre-develop the Chariot now, we're fine. If I use the 1 mana Chariot, then we get 1 spell mana, which could be better or worse depending on whether we think we want to use Mark of the Isles next turn. I'm thinking it's a little too early to think about using Mark of the Isles. I'd rather just like commit all of my mana out, I would say. And I don't know if there's really enough value in adding Sparring Student to the board. Yeah, you know what? I think it is better. Let's go ahead and get Sparring Student off as well. He'll probably attack into this, and there's not too much we can do here. I mean, I do think we do need to stop this Aristocrat. Like I said, the most important thing to understand here is he's probably the aggressor in this matchup, which means just like stabilizing slow plays benefit me more than him. So even though this trade is a little bit awkward for me, if I live long enough, I can basically ensure that I win the game. Time is on my side in this case because his deck plays faster than mine. It needs to win faster. So the next play is just going to be the Shark Chariot. We're just going to be mana efficient. I don't want to send any of my mana into spell mana yet, because I want to get all my units down to the board and start putting on some amount of pressure, just because I don't think Mark of the Isles is going to be offering me any real value here. I don't think I'm going to want to use it because it gives ephemeral anyway. You know, using it on Zed doesn't end up doing that much. There's the Guile, which is pretty unfortunate, but not too much we can do about that. It just means our attack is very significantly worse, and I mean, I'll take this attack just because, again, I benefit more from this stabilized scenario than he does. So if he wants to block with his Arachnoid Horror, I'm actually pretty happy with that. In a different matchup where decks are playing at different speeds, I would actually be unhappy with this trade. But again, just like, you know, both players neutralizing each other's board is going to be better for me here. He's playing out Elise. We've got another Mark in hand. So this is a pretty hilarious situation. Wow. So we can kill the Elise by blocking with Zed and using Zed's Shadow Shift, which will basically just kill the Elise because it will put the Living Shadow here, keep my Zed alive. Alternatively, if we just don't use Shadow Shift, this card will turn into a Zed in my hand when my Zed dies. And then I can just play that. And that just saves me 3 mana. For free. So, I mean, I guess I would just never run this. Well, yeah, this is why I don't run Shadow Shift. I think it's just quite a pretty bad card. But yeah, we're just going to take this block. That's fine. When our Zed dies, our champion spell Shadow Shift will just turn back into the other Zed. And I mean, we can just play it out. That's pretty great. Doesn't really matter whether we play Shark Chariot or Zed here, really. Because we do want to get both out. Okay, but dealing with the Elise is pretty important, just because, you know, Spider deck, she does pretty spooky things in that deck if you let her get out of control sometimes. I don't think the Spider deck is, you know, amazingly strong. I don't even think it's really a tier 3 deck. It might be like tier 3 at a high level, but in terms of the beginner decks, it is one of the better ones, maybe the best one. Got a full board. Okay. Third Mark of the Isles. I mean, it's pretty fascinating. If I had an elusive, I just swing for casual 9 to face. I mean, you just swing here. There's almost a half consideration to not swing. There's this cheeky play where sometimes if your opponent has a full board, you cannot give them an opportunity to clear a board. Max board slots is 6, so in theory, if I were to not do anything, and if I don't block his Spiderlings, that means he can never play another unit, and I'm kind of locking him in that way. The problem is I'm then just taking 6 damage a turn for no reason, so I'm dead in 3 turns, less if he has like spells that he can use. Realistically, it's just a little too cheeky to not just attack you like a normal human being. I mean, the Zed clone as well as the additional shark coming out is really nice. There's Grasp of the Undying. And there's just kind of like no value to do anything here. Mark of the Isles has a unique opportunity to push 6 to Dome, which is really powerful. So let's look at the resolve order here. Oh no, wait, Grasp is hitting Zed, so he's keeping the spider alive. That's gonna overheal him. Blade's Edge is gonna kill my shark. So yeah, Mark of the Isles has the ability to push 6 instead of the normal 3. And I've got 3 Mark of the Isles, so keeping more around doesn't really do anything. I'm pretty happy to use Mark here. So we can see how this is going to resolve. Basically, Mark goes, then Blade's Edge won't kill my Chariot. It'll die later, and that's fine. And Grasp of the Undying will overheal, because this will end up resolving before the attacks go through. And he'll end up at 14, as we can see here looking at the preview thing. I'll keep the other 2 marks in hand. There's no reason to use them here. The first mark was uniquely providing 6 damage, right? But I can turn this into 3 damage whenever I want. This is not my last opportunity to do that, and I keep the option open by having them in hand. I also had to use 1 to be mana efficient. You'll see it here actually, ooh, god. This is a really unfortunate draw. I've completely run out of steam. I'm drawing like very awkward combo pieces at all the wrong times. So, Mark of the Isles is a card that I've run into two of in a lot of other situations. This is like the one true nightmare scenario where you're running 3 Mark and you draw all 3 Mark. That can be very awkward. You're not really meant to draw all 3. It's a powerhouse card. Obviously you could cut it down to 2, but it would have to take a lot of testing to determine like which one ends up being better on average. And just taking attacks here is fine. I'm not too afraid of anything he might do. Really want to stop the spiders from hurting me. God, am I losing to a bot deck? Oh, draws, please. What are you doing?
Be still.
This is not my finest hour. Okay, I mean I've got a student out, I guess. Another 1/1.
Watching you.
That's quite nice. Down to 5. Okay, I mean his open attack is potentially smart. It's a lot safer. He lost the potential to go for lethal.
That's my resting.
I mean, he's at 14. We're getting pretty pushed out here. Generally speaking, not great. So we're gonna need to use one of the marks to threaten Chariots here. You didn't want to do this earlier. But now that we've got the 2 Chariots sent away, and we haven't drawn an Ephemeral, and we're kind of on our last legs, we're at 5 HP, we want to make sure he can't deal that 5 through to us. We're effectively going to choose one of our units to sacrifice for the sake of summoning Chariots. If we sacrifice our Green Glade duo, we will be able to deal extra damage with the Mark of the Isles, which is really important. And you have to use this before you declare combat here. But Green Glade is also one of the stronger things to sacrifice, which I don't like. I can force him to lose a lot of HP though. I can push this up to 8 Strike Chariots threaten, a pretty ludicrous amount, and of course this will be growing to face. I think the last mark has to be saved for later. I mean, as much of a threat as this is, we can't actually push lethal for him if he wants to block all of our stuff, even though we're summoning 2 big sharks. So we can go ahead and take a swing here. That works. Or we could take the second mark as well. Just for value. I mean, we might want another way to get the Ephemeral, right? Because we're summoning sharks, there's no reason to use Mark of the Isles yet. We can do it when he declares blockers and when we're going for Death Mark. So, Mark of the Isles Naturally, you're not supposed to draw 3 of them, but it's able to bail you out in situations that it causes. So yeah, he's just taking a fairly greedy block here. Oh no, wait, he can't block my duo. Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with me. So we have the ability to maybe kill his Skitter if we want. We can keep the Soul Shepherd alive with Deathmark. But I think the most important thing is just deciding whether we want to push some extra face damage. He's healing 4 from this, which is fairly awkward and not a crazy amount we can do against that. Our Shark won't be going face here. So I think the only thing left to do is to keep the Shark pressure alive and keep the Mark option open. So that means what we end up wanting to do is go ahead and peel off the Ephemeral from our Green Glade duo and put it on the Spider that this will end up killing now, and keep the last Mark in our hand. This is actually a really, really bizarre situation. But basically, because, you know, we have a Green Glade duo that's been buffed up, we've got 2 Chariots in the graveyard, and we have so many Marks without having other Ephemeral tools. What we need to do, and the Shark is going to die, he just didn't get to strike yet. What we need to do is we need to stay alive. We have our, you know, our very small amount of health. So we're trying to stay alive and just make sure we're out of his kill range. At the same time, we're going to use Mark again. If we just use Shadow Seer, so we don't need Mark again to summon the Sharks, but using both of our Marks there isn't a good idea because we need a way to summon Sharks. We can take 3 to Dome. He has like the potential to kill us with a 2 damage. I can't really think of anything that can actually go for 2 here, so not enough reason not to take this block. I think Sparring Student just gets trumped out anyway. Yeah, that's fine. So we basically just got like a free health, and we can't, I think, use our Mark of the Isles. All it does is kill this Spider basically. So it's probably not worth it in this case. But we've got our duo alive. We're down to 3 health. We're down to 3 health against this bot. But we have the Shadow Seer and the Mark, and I think that means we're good. One important thing to note is that if he has a card that deals 1 damage, opening Shadow Seer before the attack can be pretty bad. We need a way to basically try to kill him this turn ideally. We have Mark of the Isles going for 3, 2 Chariots coming in buffing my duo, which pushes 2 more, and then we're 2 short. If I play Shadow Seer and he kills it, I actually don't have a way to finish the game this round. So I might have to do something fairly bizarre. There's a chance that it could end up being a better play to open with Navori Conspirator. I think that's a little too bizarre. We could instead use a Burst Pass here. I think that's a pretty fantastic spot for this. Let's go ahead. Do we lose to Vengeance if we do a Burst Pass? I think the Burst Pass is the better play here overall. So a Burst Pass basically just means we take a Burst Speed spell and we're gonna basically send it back to him. And by doing this, we're ensuring that if he passes back, if he had passed back there, we still would have gotten the attack. This logic is only gonna seem weird to people that played Artifact, in which that wouldn't have worked like that. I wouldn't have been able to do a safe pass. Because Burst is akin to gain initiative in Artifact. Now that I know what card he had in his hand, I can just safely play out my lethal here with a guaranteed win. Okay. That was pretty monka there for a bit, guys, but we pulled it off. We got it through. Oh god, that game. All right, we're good, guys. We didn't lose to a bot after all. So yeah, maybe 3 Mark of the Isles is something I could get out of. Obviously, you know, awkward draws do happen sometimes. Doesn't necessarily mean anything. But that could be something I'm looking to cut out of this deck moving forward. We'll see. There's definitely a lot of flexible pieces and different ways to build this version.